Cache-Maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Well, welcome to GeoGearHeads. This is episode 270. Love those round numbers. I am Chris of the Northwest, along with our illustrious host, Daryl W4. This is a show, and we know your listeners. You know all about it. But if you're listening for the first time, this is a show all about geocaching and geolocation games. Now, tonight, we're doing one of the episodes types that I love, but it's an unfortunate occurrence. Daryl, what really happened?
Well, unfortunately, and people who are just listening for the first time wouldn't expect Peanuts or Pretzels to be on today, but Peanuts or Pretzels did have something that came up and they had to cancel on us. So that's why we're doing a randomized show tonight. We are working to get Peanuts or Pretzels back on later on, but getting schedules to match is kind of tough, especially when, they're doing a lot of business with like China and Asia and all around the world. So it does make it a little tough to get things coordinated.
And you can never find out if you're going to get peanuts or pretzels.
No, but, we'll have both of them on.
Yeah, you see, we get peanuts and pretzels with peanut or pretzels.
I didn't think either one was peanuts or pretzels.
That's not the way it works. Yeah.
No. Together they are peanuts or pretzels.
That's right. It's a genius name when you analyze it. But
when you overanalyze.
Wow. You see, then you overanalyze it. Hey, in the chat, I just want to break off really quick and mention that Tick Magnet says randomized shows are his favorite too. You never know what you're going to get. And sometimes we never know what you're going to get on a randomized show.
Yeah, and I was surprised at how much stuff we already had accumulated for a randomized show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of good that we had this week to throw it in, get a lot of this stuff out of the way, and I have the feeling we're not going to get through all of it.
No, this is Randomize 55 or LV Las Vegas, as I like to say. Lost Vegas?
Lost Vegas?
Yeah. Wasn't it Rock Vegas in the Flintstones movie?
I believe so.
Yeah. Anyway, as you might know, coming up here, it's at the end of the month, and it may seem like a long way away if you look on a calendar, but it's going to be here before you know it. March 30th. We're doing an episode. It's episode number 274 with Rock Chalk. You know him from Geocaching HQ. And Land Monkey. You know him from the Canada places. About how caching is like a donut. So send your thoughts on how geocaching is like a donut to GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com, and we just might use it on the show. If we do use it on the show, you might get a gift from coinsandpins.com or project-gc.com. Either way, it's a .com gift. Of course, it doesn't need to be limited to how caching is like a donut, though it might be a great donut-themed cache or event. In fact, R. Reagan has sent photos of an event hosted under a giant donut. So you've got something to live up to. As we said earlier, send those to GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com so we can share them, and you might just get something cool in return.
And I thought I have to find a giant donut like that so I can podcast from under the giant donut for our Caching is Like a Donut show.
I've seen, the big floaty rings for pools and that.
Yeah.
I've seen a big inflatable donut.
Oh yeah, I've seen those too. This was like probably an 8-foot giant donut hanging over their head in a diner kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I got to find that.
I think like Route 66 type.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we also have news from the geocaching. Actually, it was. I think it's on the blog, but it's not actually posted because they're doing like a member or a premium member preview. Where in the world is Signal? And the whole point is that in 2017, geocaching.com is celebrating geocaching around the world, and they're doing souvenirs for all of these things. So they're sending signal to Frog around the world, traveling to the various countries. And his first stop is going to be on Germany, Thursday, April 13th, for the 11th annual Donnerstag. And I'm probably pronouncing that wrong.
Donnerstag.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know any different.
But it's like a holiday or something. We just had a conversation about that in the patron hangout, and I don't remember any of it. Actually, it was before the patron hangout.
I was going to say, I don't remember it in the patron hangout, and I'm pretty sure I was there.
You were, but you had issues getting in, so you missed that conversation.
Let me tell you about issues.
Well, we'll talk about issues in a little bit, but the first ever souvenir is acquired by attending an event on April 13th. Doesn't matter if you're attending any particular event, just no CETOs. So April 13th, if you want to get that event, and if you don't have an event nearby, see if you can maybe get one listed.
You still got time. You could grab and set one. In fact, I got a message today of some people who were considering, hey, how about if we do this and that? I was like, oh. Now, Thursdays are hard for me to do an event.
Yes, they are. And especially that Thursday is going to be kind of tough, I think, because I think we're going to be out with family.
Yeah. So I really want to do it just, because events are fun. But I may have to host one, say at lunchtime, in order to squeeze it in.
That's a good idea. Do a lunch or maybe a breakfast event.
Oh, I eat breakfast.
Do it at a donut house of some type.
Oh, because geocaching is like a donut.
Exactly.
In fact, if you have any, I forgot the word. I want to say an analogy, but that's not it. It's a simile. It's a
simile.
If you have any examples, can you
metaphor?
tell this isn't scripted? A metaphor. If you have a metaphor why geocaching is like a donut, make sure you send that in to GeoGearHeads@cacheamaniacs.com. That's GeoGearHeads@cacheamaniacs.com. Operators are standing by.
Well, you were talking about issues, and Amazon had a really big one this week. It was a huge issue. And for people who don't know, Amazon's S3 service is one of those key pins of the entire internet. So many services that you have no idea use it are relying on S3 because it is very fast, very cheap, and usually really reliable.
We thought incredibly stable until this week.
Right. So they had the North Virginia data center that had an outage, a very nasty outage. So Engadget posted a story about it today, saying Amazon admits that a typo took the internet down this week. And that's pretty much what happened. It wasn't a complete outage like we've seen with some of the other issues. Like we were even talking about this in the patron hangout because it was still like just getting over it at the time. There was a router that had gotten misconfigured a few years back, and it like took down major portions of the internet because that routing table with that one typo propagated, and they had to actually like power cycle routers to get things back up, with the backup routing files. So it took quite a while for that to happen. And this is kind of similar, though it's not nearly as bad as that was. Because this one, and this affects services like Giphy, Medium, Slack, Quora. There's a ton of them that were affected that we were coming across. Just stuff wasn't working.
Muncie?
Well, and that's Muncie and Wallaby and Evency were down for migration to S3 that day. Mm-hmm. So I have the feeling that their migration was slowed down by the outage, but they were down because they were moving to S3 from their own servers. They might wish that they hadn't done that now, but we'll see what everything straightens itself out. But what happened was a tech trying to fix issues with their billing servers. They actually took the billing servers offline because the servers were acting sluggish, which is something right out of the company's playbook, according to them. But unfortunately, this is a quote, unfortunately, one of the inputs to the command was entered incorrectly and a larger set of servers was removed than intended. So someone just fat fingered something and shut down like probably all of the servers handling S3 out of the North Virginia territory or something like that. But as for why the problem took longer to correct, Amazon says that was some of its server systems haven't been restarted in many years. Given how much the S3 system has expanded, the process of restarting these services and running the necessary safety checks to validate the integrity of the metadata took longer than expected.
Can you imagine? I mean, think of the Windows updates that had to be installed.
Oh, I hope not.
No, that wasn't.
The people were joking that Windows updates took down S3. And
it should be, yeah.
Tick Magnet says that the photos on cache pages were also affected.
Are you reading the next one from
yeah, I was quickly reading that one, but we'll move on to Mobile World Congress 2017, the big conference where everyone releases their new phones, talks about new products, that kind of thing for the mobile industry. That just wrapped up, and really there were two products that people walked away with as being interesting. That's it. Out of the probably hundreds of phones, there are two that people were talking about. The first one
have we become callous in all this?
Well,
it's just another phone. It's going to be like the others. Yeah, maybe it's got a better camera. More.
Well, the interesting phones that made it to Mobile World Congress were announced, a few weeks before. Some of them a lot longer, but there really wasn't much, aside from the new 1x2 screens that LG and I think someone else was touting, to give you a taller screen, which supposedly is actually kind of nice when you get down to using it, but I don't think I want a taller phone. In any case, there's a few interesting phones that were released beforehand, but the stuff that was released there, it was nothing to write home about. It's all the same old thing, just, upgrades on, the existing tech. So the first phone that people were actually talking about, though, is that BlackBerry Key 1. And we'll have a link to the Android Central review of it. But this thing is not actually made by BlackBerry. It's designed and manufactured by a Chinese company called TCL. So this is not a BlackBerry OS. It's an Android phone licensed to be manufactured by this third party. The specs on it aren't all that interesting. It's a Qualcomm Snapdragon 625 processor with 3 gigs of RAM. It is, as they put it, decidedly a mid-range processing package. However, it is very battery efficient, and when paired with the large 3,500 milliamp hour battery, it's a recipe for a very impressive battery life. Now, it does have that physical keyboard that people like, and people have been raving about that one, under a 3x2 screen. So it's a little bit different ratio. It's more your traditional BlackBerry, and it's coming in at only $549.
I'm not going to go back to BlackBerry. Just saying.
No, I definitely would not want this, but for the people who do like those physical keyboards and are doing the email and that kind of thing, I could see this one being a really hot little phone. Yeah, I just can't imagine going back to a physical keyboard. Not that I especially love the glass keyboards, but that's an awful lot of screen real estate to take away, and an awful lot of buttons I'll accidentally hit when I throw it in my pocket.
Yeah, but if you've got a week of standby time, businesses are going to love it.
Yeah, well, and that's going to be the big thing, is all of that battery life. And I think some cachers are going to appreciate that as well. And it's not a really expensive phone.
Right.
You don't need a whole lot of processing horsepower if you're just going geocaching. Now, I am a little concerned about its performance for things like Pokemon Go. However,
That's where the keyboard really comes in handy.
I was going to say the keyboard on Pokemon Go is going to get in the way, and I don't know that you want to even try it with Pokemon Go.
New version.
But you know what? Nokia is back.
I know. Can you believe it?
I can actually. And they're primarily going after Windows phones with their new stuff. And they're not interesting at all. None of them are interesting. They're all boring.
There's one thing interesting about
There's one Nokia that's interesting, and that's a new version of the 3310, which is that old feature phone that, everyone talked about. It's that old phone that, it's a tank. You can, abuse the thing and it's going to continue working. But it's been updated now with a 2.4-inch QVGA color display, but it's running the Nokia Series 30 Plus, not Windows Phone, not Android. It's not a smartphone. It's a dumb phone. It does, however, have Snake, which is why so many people are loving this. It's only got a 2-megapixel camera, and it does have a micro SD slot. That's new. It's targeted at about $52 US, $49 or 49 euros. So that gives you an idea, what it's going to be. Whether we see it in the US, I don't know, but I know a lot of people who are going to be very happy that there is a new feature phone, not a new smartphone, but a new feature phone, and a lot more people who are happy to see Nokia coming back with these tanks that you can abuse and they'll keep running.
And it's a $50 phone. That's the interesting part to me.
Yeah, but it's not a smartphone.
No.
And being that it's that 30 Plus OS, I don't think you're going to find any of the caching apps that still work.
No, and you don't expect to. So
no.
You have to go back to what was the text interface for
WAP?
WAP. There you go. You have to go back to caching by the WAP interface.
Well, but that wouldn't help you find the cache. Just look up the cache information.
Yeah. It will let you text to be able to text somebody with a smartphone to get the information you need.
There you go. Or call them if whoever has a smartphone is willing to actually take a call.
Ooh, wait. Do smartphones take calls?
They do, but most people have that turned off because they don't want to actually talk to each other. No, it's just annoying. And there are no landlines anymore, so you can't call anyone at home.
Daryl, that's funny you mentioned that. I don't know if you noticed, but I was on a trip.
I did notice that.
And you noticed 3 studios in 3 weeks?
Yes.
It's good to be back home. Let me tell you, my own bed is fun. But as I was driving cross country, we went down to California, and as you're heading on a stretch of I-5 there's nothing around. And, I'm watching the telephone poles go by, thinking, in my lifetime, am I going to see the end of telephone poles?
I would say no, because we still need it.
Poles?
No, you still need it to get the ISPs, access to your house and, that kind of stuff. You still need power lines.
Yeah, I don't expect power lines will go away, but will the telephone lines go away?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see the lines on those poles reduced, especially as accidents happen and, the lines come down. Right. They just won't replace it. They'll probably start consolidating and putting more circuits onto the one line that they rerun or, whatever. But especially that copper going to, from the central office to your curb, it's going to start disappearing because it's just not being used.
Right.
We are seeing more and more fiber and more cable use, but it's almost all for the ISPs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if you have an old landline, it's still being converted to a VoIP phone somewhere and being sent across.
Right. Well, yeah, even they're doing that even over copper.
Yeah. Exactly.
Those old copper analog circuits are not analog anymore. They're digital, and then there's a box that's powered somewhere that does the conversion for you.
So anyway, that's just funny when you said, who has a landline. I thought, am I going to see that in my lifetime?
Well, let's move on to the Boy Genius report that you hinted at earlier. And the title of their report was "We tried the crazy smartphone camera zoom you can't even buy yet." Well, what
So,
happened is Chinese smartphone maker Oppo announced a 5x dual camera zoom for smartphones that aren't on any models. There's nothing coming out that uses this. Is just, they announced that they have this system. Basically, what it is a 2x optical zoom on one camera, and that actually works like a periscope. So the optics move internally across the top of the phone. There are a bunch of the point and shoot cameras, the waterproof cameras that had done this and still do this technique, but this is new because it's tiny, tiny little package.
right.
So it's like a periscope. It has a 90-degree prism in the system, and then the optics move internally across the top of the phone. Then they take that, mix it with the other camera, because there's two cameras. One's a fixed, one has that 2x optical zoom, and what you end up with is a digital 5x zoom.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would have to see some of the results of it, and if it's not in a phone, I don't know how you can.
Well, they did have that at Mobile World Congress, and people were playing with it, and they were impressed with it. It's very similar software-wise, as I understand, to what Apple and others have been doing, but Apple's the one that's been getting all the press with their dual cameras. But
Right.
they weren't the first. I think Huawei was the first one that actually released a phone with the dual cameras. I could be wrong because I didn't bother looking that up. But it has been a bigger factor that people are going to these dual cameras where one is a wide angle, one is a telephoto, or not really telephoto, but one is a little bit more telephoto, more of a normal usually.
Right.
And that way you can, that way you can mix. Plus, you can get some depth information because you have the two cameras, and it's essentially taking two pictures at once and blending them digitally.
Yeah. And Daryl, you say that so matter of fact. Yeah, think of the technology that's involved there. That is amazing to me.
Oh, absolutely. And they're doing it in the phones in
phone,
nearly real time.
Mhm.
So there's
It's
all
like
kinds of
two
stuff that we've
photos
been doing.
overlaid and mixed in. It's like, what? Okay.
Yeah, well, we've been doing all kinds of stuff with focus stacking, with high dynamic range and DSLRs, where you have to take all that data, send it into your photo processing app, Photoshop kind of thing, and it processes for a couple of minutes, and you get this thing back. This is doing it in real time. Now, granted, it's
Right.
not doing anywhere near the quality that you get out of something like the Photoshop plugin, but
Right.
just the fact that it's doing it
Right.
and doing it so well is astounding.
Exactly. Speaking of doing things well, Limax sent in a question. He wants to know, he's curious to see if anyone's tried Dropbox Paper yet. I just found out about it and didn't know if it would be a good substitute for Evernote. It looks promising. So, does it work well?
I have actually not had a chance to play with it.
I saw it, but I didn't even pay attention to what it was. I thought, oh, it's Dropbox. Dropbox usually does good things.
Yeah, it does. It's essentially the editor, and it's web based, I believe, only. Does that sound right?
I don't know.
But the initial reactions that I had heard is it's good, but you're better off with docs or sheets for performance. So it's not really there yet, and I don't really think docs is good enough to use for notes. As far as performance goes, especially in the field, it takes a little too long to spool up. But yeah, this has kind of been an internal, or not internal, a recent question because Evernote has gotten so incredibly heavy. You'll notice we haven't done a show on Evernote in years because it got nasty. It's gotten expensive. It's gotten bloated to the point that it's slow and no one wants to use it anymore. Even, we've pretty much stopped using it for doing our show stuff.
There is an app for paper, for Dropbox Paper.
Oh, okay.
And offline access is coming soon. So it's very much like Google Docs. You have a team that can collaborate at the same time. You have a flexible workspace. You have simplified formatting tools to keep things clean and easy. So,
yeah, so it's definitely an option. There are some others out there. I just saw an article today about an app called Bear that is only for iOS and Mac, which I don't like, but they were touting how it's pretty much like the old Evernote had been, where it's just really fast and really simple. So there's enough people out there looking for this kind of product. A lot of people like Google Keep. There's help me out, OneNote on Microsoft side.
Yep.
But again, OneNote tends to be a little bit heavy, that a lot of people don't like it for that lack of performance.
Yeah,
So
I always think of OneNote as a desktop app, not a mobile app. And I know that's wrong thinking, but
yeah. But yeah, there's a number of these out there. A lot of people like using just notes on the phones, whatever their native notes app is. But I don't like doing that because most of the time it's not shared, or if it is, it's shared just through the apps. You can't get like web access.
Mhm.
And that was the nice thing about Evernote, is it syncs and it's available everywhere.
Mhm.
And paper is available on the web, and it's available, as you mentioned, on the app. So there you go.
Yeah. So, it may be a good substitute. If you've used it, send that feedback to GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com and let us know what you think of it. We'll get an opportunity to try it soon, and who knows, it might be in the Randomize
56.
Livey show.
Levy? We'll go with Levy. And also let us know what you're using for doing those kind of rich notes, the stuff where you can take the photos and the text and put it together. Because that's one of the big problems, is that if you're using a lot of those just straight note apps, it's text only. So you can't grab that photo of whatever the sign was, or the post-it note that you want to get the chords off of. You really want to have those photos for doing a lot of this caching, note taking. So that's what we're looking for, something that's a rich text. So photos, the text, the everything in the one app, and hopefully that syncs. So let us know what you're using at GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com. And we've got Levy coming up, Randomize Levy, in just 3 weeks, and we can start talking about it there.
You sound so French when you say la vie.
La vie, c'est la vie.
Hey, did you know I was on a trip lately?
I did.
Yeah. Let me tell you about a trip. One of the things we tried out on the trip was Glimpse. I love Glimpse.
Oh, yeah.
You do too. Glimpse updated while I was on the trip. And you had texted me and said, "Have you tried the private groups?" And I'm like, "What are private groups?" And you sent me a link, and it didn't work until I updated Glimpse. So I updated Glimpse, everything worked. So private groups, I love Glimpse groups. You could use, was it hashtags or was it an ampersand?
Well, it started off as a hashtag, if I remember. And then they actually built the groups in with an interface so you could actually join public groups. And now they've added private groups.
Right. So this is great for a small group of cachers going out. It would be good for an event. Hey, everybody, use Glimpse. Use, here's a group to join. Show us. And it would be interesting to see all those cachers come together at the event.
Yeah, and well, you could always use the private groups, or because that's restricted. So if you have like a team working at a geocaching event, use a private group, because then no one else can figure out where it is. Road rally, same thing. But you can also use the public groups, in which case you could set up, like we talked about in some of the other shows, that like big board that shows where all of the cachers are, running around. So the public group is available for like everyone to join in and use. Private group is restricted so that it's only available to certain people. And like my buddy who works AV really kind of wants to try this out for some of their events. So that when they're doing some of these big things, like they do little audio systems and some projectors and this, that, and the next thing at things like race days at the local, and that's so local, it's like an hour and something away, but the local big racetrack. So they can set this up and see who's closest when they get a call and say, hey, can you run over there and take care of this emergency?
That's a brilliant idea, actually. Keep track of your staff, your techs, your trucks as they're out on the road.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good way to see where all of these folks are, except that Glimpse is limited to a 4-hour cycle. It's not built in. That's a safety kind of thing for them. They want to make sure you don't have like the stalker boyfriend or something, or ex-boyfriend, who goes and turns it on indefinitely. It's set for 4 hours, and you can keep upping that limit manually on the phone. You can't do it remotely.
15 minutes at a time.
Yeah, but we're trying to get someone from Glimpse back on to talk with us on a future show. Getting that scheduled can be tough. No matter what, it's always tough to get people scheduled for shows, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But when we had Darren, I think it was on last time.
That sounds right.
Who's no longer with Glimpse, unfortunately. He was saying that.
Did we break Darren?
No, he was there for a while afterward.
Okay.
But he was saying when he was on that they did have a way to join the groups, and if they set up the groups and you join the public groups, it would allow them at the back end to extend that time limit. So if you join the group, it would automatically run for till whatever time it was set to expire.
Interesting.
So I'd like to see that kind of stuff in the private groups, and as far as I know, it's not there. But that would be really handy to have both public and private, so that you could set up that public group for, let's say, Moga, and everyone who joins the Moga group, it runs through the end of that race.
Yeah.
Or that event,
And Glimpse is really good for children, as they learn to drive. Just saying.
Set up the speed monitoring.
Yep. Where did you say you were going? Because that's not where you are.
There's other tools for that too.
I know, but Glimpse works well.
Yes. As long as they turn it on and activate it.
Exactly. And if they don't, then you can yell at them, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. I don't want to show you where I am. Now I've got you. Anyway. Sorry, that might be a little too personal glimpse into my life.
But the thing with the Glimpse and most of these other things is it does require the data service. Mm-hmm. It does drain your battery because the location services have to be on and running, and it's running the radios to talk back to the cellular network. So you are going to be taking up some of that battery. But if you're running Pokemon Go, Ingress, Munzie, geocaching apps, CarNav, you're not going to see that much of a difference. You're probably not even going to see any difference with Ingress or Pokemon Go, because they're already constantly talking to the network. They're constantly running the GPSR, so it's going to take up the same pretty much amount of battery. Geocaching apps frequently will shut down the GPS when you're not in a navigation screen, so they will leave that navigation open. And someone, I can't remember who it was, on an Android phone was having problems with their location, and said that they had Glimpse running all the time when they were caching. Just didn't send the app to everyone just to make sure that it would stay active and not shut down, because when it shut down, they were getting errors turning it back up.
Interesting. I found that Glimpse just sips battery and data. So
it as long as you're using something else. Yeah. When I've tried it, when I'm not even running nav, it really does have a significant impact of just having it idle. The other problem I had with Glimpse on the iPhone was it kept getting unloaded automatically because I had too many other things running.
Oh, gotcha. It was unloaded from memory.
Correct. Right. Which means it stops because it's not the foreground app that's running. Mm-hmm. It's not doing like audio playback. I have my podcatcher running, which I probably need to switch podcatchers because Downcast is taking up huge amounts of memory and processing power. Like it probably shouldn't. What's that?
Why so Downcast?
Yeah. But it's taking a lot. Then I'd run Pokemon Go and just have that sitting in my cup holder and trying to get those extra steps in. And Glimpse would unload itself on the iPhone 6 because the 6 only had, I think it's a gig of RAM.
That seems right.
Yeah, which just wasn't enough to keep it running.
And you sat it in a cup of water in order to keep it cool because it was processing so hard?
No, I actually didn't have too much trouble with that.
Okay.
I actually had it in my jacket sometimes. I have the phone pocket in my jacket, and that's still insulated. And even then, it doesn't get that hot unless I'm trying to charge. And that's the only time it really got hot. And then Tick Magnet says, Glimpse looks interesting. What about data creep? And my experience with it is it doesn't seem to use much data. It's just sending these tiny little packets. As far as I know, it's just location and bearing speed. That's it.
So everything is data creep, Tick Magnet. Everything is data creep. Oh, this is cool. Let's load this. Oh, this will load this. Yeah, data creep is an issue.
Yeah, and it's a small app. It doesn't take much room on the phone.
Right.
There are a lot of services that used to, if it seems like there's fewer and fewer of them, include Glimpse in their apps. So it would do just the basic tracking. It wouldn't do all this cool extra stuff, but the basic tracking where you could share your location was built into some of the other apps. So it just piggybacked and you didn't even have to worry about it. But now that the app's getting more, well, like BlackBerry Messenger had that built in.
I was unaware.
Yeah, we actually talked about it on the Glimpse show back when we did the full show on them.
I must not have been there because I would have remembered that. Oh wait, I was there.
Yeah, you were there. That was like 4 years ago or something like that.
Oh, Daryl, we're so old.
I think Windows Phone actually had it built into the OS.
Wow.
Yeah. But it went away with one of the updates.
Hey, we have more.
We do?
Yes. This comes from Engadget.
Ooh, Engadget. We have lots from Engadget.
Scientists makes a battery that runs on air and carbon dioxide. Isn't carbon dioxide part of air?
Yeah, I was just going to say that does seem kind of redundant.
Yeah. So you could power your battery by breathing. We exhale
Breathe
carbon
deeply
dioxide
into your battery.
Ooh, another bar. Researchers at Penn State University have potentially come up with another way we can create energy from all that nasty carbon dioxide we pump into the atmosphere. And that's us personally, because we exhale carbon dioxide. They've developed. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, and the cows. Don't forget the cows.
Oh, yeah, the cows. Yeah. Have you been down I-5? There's a lot of cows on I-5. They've developed an inexpensive flow cell battery that uses mostly water solutions containing either dissolved CO2 or dissolved normal air. A technical name for the dissolving process has become sparging, FYI. But because that liquid contains different concentrations of CO2, they have different pH levels, and that is the imbalance that generates electricity. So this battery works at room temperature, uses inexpensive materials like, water and air. Even so, they admit it may not be economically viable to use their research on a large scale just yet. The dream, though, would be to integrate these batteries into fossil fuel power stations, repurposing their CO2 emissions to make even more energy. While more work needs to be done to improve the performance and viability, you can make something good out of a bad thing.
Well, and looking at this stuff in the article, it appears that this is for big stuff. It's not going to be, like even one of those big batteries that you carry around with you. This is something that's stationary. It's, your big building UPS type of thing.
Mm-hmm. So,
or put it in a
put it on a power station and give you that little extra boost.
Yeah, they're called like peaking stations, I think, where it's a set of batteries essentially at like a substation. So during high load times, it pulls the power out of those stations, and then during off times, those are being charged up. So it's a way to keep stable energy, especially like renewable energy sources, solar and wind, generate a lot of power sometimes and then not much at other times. So these peaking stations just help to equalize that out. So when you got a lot of power coming from generation, it goes into the station. When you need a lot of power, it just starts pulling it back out of those peaking stations.
Yeah, I went out caching with Limax on this vacation, and we were near several wind generating farms. And I was interested in the fact that several of these wind generators were in a fixed orientation. They didn't rotate with the wind. I'd look at them and go, well, why are half of them spinning and half of them not? Oh, because they're not facing into the wind. What? Why wouldn't they have them rotate to maximize the efficiency?
Well, I'm really fascinated by a lot of these wind farms and stuff, because 10 years ago or whatever, when they were first looking at that as being a viable option, there were a lot of these really cool turbines being proposed, where you don't have to worry about turning them. They were like the vertical instead of horizontal ones. And I don't see any of that stuff actually going into production.
They took the vertical turbines took a whole lot of energy to start up.
Yeah.
More than they ended up producing.
Yeah. And there were a few different ones. The ones that I found really interesting were these small ones that were only like 6 or 7 feet tall, I think. And one of the concepts was put them down the middle of a divided highway and use the eddies to generate power.
What about the Ralphs or the Tonys?
Well, but they didn't have enough pull.
Okay.
Only eddies were powerful enough to move them. But the whole point was, you've got all this wind that's being generated by the freeways anyway. Put them down the middle. You'll always get the wind in the right direction because it's spinning, clockwise or counterclockwise, whatever they were designed for. You don't have to worry about it. And it was really simple and easy to do.
Obviously not.
It didn't pan out. It wasn't worth pulling off. And it was like, why? That's so cool. I really wanted that to work
faster,
well.
Generate more power.
Yeah. Well, and think about all those trucks that blow you around on the freeway. Think about how much power that they would generate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's called horsepower, and they generated it by diesel.
Or is it truck power or lorry power?
Lorry. I like lorry.
Okay. So we'll give it to lorry.
Wait, give it to lorry.
With that, why don't we wrap this up, because we are over the 42-minute mark. And, we could talk about whatever forever, because,
Exactly. Because that's the way we are.
Yeah, and it's just fun.
We talked about a show coming up, episode 274 on March 30th, at Cashing is Like a Donut. But don't think that that's the next episode. You've got to wait a month. No, that's not true. We have 3 more episodes to fill the gap for this entire month. We start with March 9th, where we talk to Ron, the developer of Geo. It's an Android-only application. March 16th, we're talking with Ben and Chris from Geocaching HQ about the geocaching app. March 23rd, we're doing Randomize LV. I love these Roman numerals. And finally, March 30th, Caching is Like a Donut with Rock Chalk and Land Monkey. So this is going to be a very Rock Chalk heavy month.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing GeoGearHeads@cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Huffenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2017 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.